Welcome back. It's the day before Thanksgiving 2019 and we haven't done a update in a while, and so I thought I'd catch a couple minutes just to share with you. This is the corner tank, the pie-shaped 60-gallon, and we finally had to get rid of that big pleco, and it was impossible to catch the pleco in the heavily dense tank. And so the only option was to completely take the tank apart, take all the plants out, and of course by that point the water is so cloudy you can't even see where he is. But we eventually did catch him, and he went to the Hidden Reef as a credit for future purchases and hopefully a home with somebody with a bigger tank that really can enjoy him. The other thing you'll see changed here right now is there's some angels that got moved over from their prior home over in the boat tank. They were doing okay there, but I got a couple of black angels at Discus Madness recently, and they came into this tank because we lost some in the boat tank, and they seem to be doing really well. And so there's 3 black, and then there's this one right in front here that has got a very interesting coloration on him. Let's see if I can capture him for you. Here he comes. Whoops, there he goes. And then I brought one over from the other tank, but he's got a green streak. I think it's a Belgian something or other. And he was in a tank of smaller angels that were very expensive, to my way of thinking anyway. And so I picked him out for the lower price that was in that tank, and very pleased with that purchase. You will notice quite a bit of color here, and that's because a lot of the young fish that we had in that barrel pond this summer are starting to grow up a little bit, and I've moved them from the office tank where they were babies into this tank. And with a couple algae tabs down there, you see a lot of activity going on with all of the fish going after that food that they love so much. But every once in a while I'll take one of the females that looks very pregnant and put them in the office tank, which has its own very heavy vegetation. There's a couple babies survive here, but not many. And so I put the female in there for a while, and they have their babies, and they really thrive in the heavy dense forest that that tank has also. And that's some of the plantings you see back here, and I'm not sure quite what it is, but it's got a very fine protective leaf to it, or fern, whatever you want to call it, which gives the babies a good place to hide in that structure. And it does well in the office tank. I have to keep cutting it back. And so what you see here is, remember the Amazon swords that were overtaking this tank? Well, in all honesty, I didn't redo this tank. My wife did. We had talked about it, and I hadn't gotten around to doing it, so next thing I know she was in here doing it. And when that happens, I sit back and make sure I don't try and offer advice. She does very well on her own, and the last thing you need when you're doing a tank is somebody over your shoulder second guessing you. So I sit back, and then later on maybe I do some slight adjustments so that big Amazon sword and the bigger one behind it gives this tank really some sense of depth, and I'm very pleased with that. And so it's interesting to see over time the different plants thrive and get overgrown, and then I end up later on with just like one sprig of the oh, come on, not columbine. Anyway, there's the red and the green right next to it there, and behind that is the Madagascar lace plant, which has a very different leaf on it, as I've said in recent updates. It's a narrow leaf as opposed to the wide leaves that we normally see here. The other thing you'll see is that algae eater, the big one, he's really getting to a point where we got 2 of those in the other tank, and maybe it's time to give him up also, because the other 3 in here that were introduced later on, as you just saw go by, are starting to get bigger finally. They stayed pretty small for a good long while, and now all three of them are starting to grow up, and I really don't need 4 big algae eaters here. And yes, I've done quite a bit of research, and I'm quite convinced they are algae eaters. The other day we were looking at the catfish, and I think Pam counted 8 of them in this particular tank, and maybe 10 in the other tank. I love catfish, I really do. And some of these are so small they have to have been born in this tank, as we had some babies before. And wow, they're really going to town here. That tricolored shark is just gorgeous right in the front. We've got 2 or 3 red-tailed sharks, and you know how much I love them. And 2 of them are growing up nicely. The other one is staying pretty small. I'm surprised, but nevertheless. And we have those tuxedo platies here that used to look like little just yellow dots in the tank someplace, but it turns out they were a whole fish, and the black blended with the background and made you think they were just a yellow dot swimming around there. So this tank is doing well. Plants are doing well. It's very heavily planted. I recently moved a lot of those plants back just to give it a frontage where the fish would come out and you could see them. No sense having fish if you can't see them, right? And once that pleco was out of there, I gave up trying to catch them. I mean, I told you I tried to use that big butterfly net and lure them into that with algae tabs and stuff like that. That never worked. But there was just so many plants that as soon as he got spooked, he disappeared right between the plants, and he was gone deep in the back, and no way I could get him. So it finally took, as I say, an extreme pull out all the plants. We vacuumed all of the gravel, which certainly needed it, and maybe that's why the plants are doing so well, because they have so much fertilizer in that gravel. And so that's sort of where we are with this particular tank. Let's move over to the boat tank. So in the other side of the room we have the boat tank, which is easily overgrown, and yeah, I need to get in here and do something with it. You see off to the right there another fairly large pleco, and there comes the red-tailed shark doing so well. And right down in the front there's I don't know if it's albino, I don't think it's albino, but it's a bristlenose pleco, and he's that yellowish thing right there. You just saw him swim back behind one of the Amazons, and there's that red-tailed shark. This tank is just so thick with plants that as much as I love it, I know I have to do something with it, and just been too busy with other things to actually do something. The fish don't mind it, of course. They certainly enjoy it. And I did move over some of the pearl gouramis that were left in the corner tank over here to join its partners, if it will. Also, when we went to Disc Madness, I liked the rams, German rams, and trying to see if I can capture it for you here. There's a pair of them in here, at least I think it's a pair. Very nice fish, really colorful, gentle fish, don't seem to bother anybody. And they last a while and then they disappear. And this one's doing just fine. It's been about 2 weeks. Then the other thing we got when we were over there, Bruce and I doing our thing, and there's a Sturby catfish that Bruce and I picked up 3 of. And again, they weren't cheap. They were about $12 a piece. But look at that red-tailed shark. Isn't he beautiful? And so there's about 10 catfish in this tank according to my wife's count. And they're all doing well also. Can't think of much new. The Madagascar lace plant has come back strong. You see how broad the leaves are in this particular one? That's what the plant in the other tank was like. But for some reason or other it's come back again through one of its regenerations in a very narrow leaf. And over here we have the pearl gourami that, whoa, where did he just get off to? Somebody just chased him. And you can see the 2 of them next to each other. See how bright color he is? I'm assuming he must be a male. And the other one, maybe the female, just doesn't have the same coloration, you know what I mean? The blue grammies, still from Ray's tank way back when, are continuing to thrive in this particular tank. There's 2 of them. And then we got some color with the swordtails that I enjoy so much. A bunch of Serpae in the background here. Some zebras. There's 2 of those big Indian algae eaters working in the tank here. And always amazed me watching the plecos work the really thin leaves of that Italian val in the corner. For as big as those plecos are, and you can see the one right here, they will very gently work their way up that very thin leaf of the Italian val, and it's like they're no weight at all. It doesn't bow over the leaf just sits there gentle, and the pleco works any algae on that leaf, standing straight up, not like it is right now. And there's also a school of neons in here. There was a cherry barb. I'm trying to think of what else. Nothing really new of note. There's that bristlenose pleco that we start out with. They're doing well. There's 2 of them in there, and there comes one of those Sterbai catfish. There's red-tailed shark, the other one. I think it's the other one. There's 2 of them in here, and you can see off back in the leaves there. You can see some of the flashes of the neon. They stay pretty well in the overgrowth, and so they do well. They're all getting on the large side. I found some new food that's slow thinking and really is small, and that I think is good food for them and allows them to grow up nicely. I'm trying to see if I can capture that ram for you. I think that's him. Again, it's hard to see through the lens finder what I'm looking at. And looks like the plants in the front are causing that to be out of focus. Sorry about that. Anyway, that's the bow tank. Someday we have to do a real do-over of this tank too, but not this Thanksgiving. Let's move back into the office tank. But maybe first a quick stop to see how the bedders are doing. And the fins on the bedder just keep growing out nicely. Of course, there's nothing to attack them, so the fins just flow out nicely. The red one is in the left-hand side, hidden back there. The plants are growing nicely too. And this guy, he's not going to show us his fin. Well, maybe he is. If I turn around to the side, you'll see a little bit. Of course, I turn around the side and he turns to look at us. There you go. Give some sense of what he's all about. Very pretty fish, and as much as I like fish interacting with each other, they seem to do just fine in this small, I don't know how many gallon tank it is, but it's just for the 2 bedders. Now, I haven't tried to dress up this tank at all for you, just so the way it is. Normally it overgrows very quickly. And you'll see a couple, there's a large brick red swordtail female that looked like she was pretty pregnant, so I moved her back here. Give her a chance to have her babies. The black mollies are doing well, 2 of them there. And she has had her babies. At least some of them I see up in the plants. And then there's a, a green sword female in here that's huge. There's a male in there, and 2 females in fact. And then there's those half-black mollies. And everybody's doing fine. You can sort of get an idea. First of all, the Amazon sword plant takes over this tank. And then secondly, we've got that plant I was telling you about that acts such great protection for the babies. So just the other day, for example, I saw a real tiny yellow type babies. In fact, there's one there. I don't think you can see it, it's so small, but it's just up to the right there. Let's see how close I can get in. It may go out of focus by that point. and that's a female guppy there, but there was a real tiny yellow baby in that undergrowth or the brush, if you will, where that guppy is feeding right now, and so the babies can go in through that very easily and stay out of the way of any other fish. But they're pretty well fed, so I don't find them going after the babies too much here. There's the female pineapple sword is what I was trying to think of, and she looked pretty heavy too, so I moved her out of that corner tank back here. And I don't think there's anything special here. The black molly just looks beautiful, and it's a young couple. Really looks nice. So we're trying to encourage them. I had great luck years ago with two giant black mollies. I love black mollies, but they don't normally do very well long term. And so when I saw these recently, and here comes the male, I bought them and put them in here, and they're doing very well in here, and they did very well in this tank years ago. And there's the female and one of those catfish. There's about 6 catfish in here also. This is a 30-gallon. And fish are doing well. It's not exactly a show tank in the sense that you don't get to see much of the fish. There's so much room to hide in. But when they come out, they're doing very well. And of course, this is the tank that's got the 2 clown loaches that are getting huge. I'm not sure what to do about that. They're doing just fine here. I should leave them alone. And I'm always afraid to move them in one of the other tanks, because the other tanks at one point in time had clown loaches, but they came down with ick, and I wasn't able to recover them. I now have plain salt, non-iodized salt available, and what I've been told is just put them in that kind of water for a while and it'll kill off the ick very quickly. But I didn't have it at the time, and by the time I got some, it was too late. So this is my entertainment when I'm in here working, and I'm in here on my email and working on everything most of my time. And so this is sort of a breeding tank, not purposeful for that, but there's so much growth there, and the live bears are in here that they seem to do just fine. So now we see a little bit more of those catfish down there coming out. I put in, there's the clown loach, one of the 2. I put a algae tab down there each morning, and everybody gets down around that, and that brings out both of the clown loaches. So with that, let me close this out. Hopefully it's a fairly short one, and I'm looking at it, and I think we got about 18 minutes overall between the 4 different scenes. And so I wish you a very happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your fish, and winter can be a tough time for fish, and so I hope that yours are doing well. And again, my plants, I still use the same fertilizer program. Somebody commented one time that the Leaf Zone fertilizer was really nothing but water. I don't believe that, because they're doing so well with it. So some advice you take, sometimes you say, no, my advice is stronger, my experience is stronger than the advice that you're offering, type thing. So with that, I will let you go.
I told her when it comes to talking, I'm the sweetest, sweet